Frank. Now listen, how many times has iTunes and Apple Music really wanted you to listen to that one U2 album? Like all the time, right?
I after that album, I just stopped using the app permanently. I just stopped. I stopped. It's we could do whole episodes on music history and how us oldies used to collect music and how I've given up on all of it now. So I don't even open any of those apps anymore.
It's really funny because one of the things that the iPhone loves to do is when you plug into new media sources, it really wants to play music. And on my iPhone, because I've never been an iPhone user up until like 2 years ago, which means on my Apple account, I only have one album, which is the U2 album. And I know that there's a way to get rid of it. Heather did it somehow, but it was like she had to like install like iTunes and then do this other thing and then like write a message to Bono and be like, I really want to get rid of this album. And then Bono had to approve it and like sign off on it. So
I'm curious about that. Someone should do a YouTube documentary and say like, because my guess was I thought maybe I'm just it's all up in my head, but I thought that they had made it easier slash it's not forced down on anyone anymore, but for everyone who had the account back then. So without looking, I am curious whether I have it, but I refuse to open the app. So no, not going to happen.
well, reminiscing of the days of yore, the Zune's back. Did you know that?
Oh, you know what? I hope all we're going to do is talk about the Zune today because is this a Scott Hanselman thing? Are we just following Scott Hanselman, or is this a Guardians of the Galaxy thing, or is this us just going to reminisce about 2005? When was the Zune out? I've forgotten already.
Okay, so here's the deal. When I was a kid, it came out in 2006, so very close. Now, when I was a kid, I had CD players, and I love CD players and cassette players. I followed the evolution of music. Now, when I heard that there was a thing called Napster where I could peruse music and have access to legally backups of the music CDs that I purchased and listen to them anywhere. And there's a thing called an MP3 player. And Frank, it blew my mind. And I might have told this story before, but let me go on my journey. Frank, here's my journey.
It's story time, everyone. What do
I
we
got my first MP3 player. It had 128 megabits of storage. And
That's a lot of
it
bits.
blew my mind. I could put almost a full CD on it. No, back in the day, MP3s were like super compressed, right? Because you were downloading over 56K modems and just, you didn't have a lot going on. Now, I got that. I was pretty blown away. Now, there used to be a website called like freeipods.com or whatever. Do you know about this? It's the biggest
iPods.
You know about this?
No.
You know about this? So I was a kid in high school and then in college, and I was a hustler, right?
Oh boy.
And a tech hustler though, because I was like, I know how to use the internet. I'm not, I know how to do this thing. So there's a website. It was called like freeipods.com or whatever. I don't go there. I don't know. It's probably not a real website anymore. But
don't go there anymore.
In the days of yore, before all of the affiliate things, all this stuff, someone was really smart and they said, hey, well, listen, if we can get people to sign up for magazines or subscriptions or these free trials, if they get so many signups and get referrals and do this other stuff, blah, 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 they'll give you an iPhone. You get credits, you get 10 referrals, get iPhone. And there were all these forums and message boards and, AOL chat rooms.
Pyramid scheme with an iPhone at the top of the pyramid. I'm not getting it. So what legwork are you doing and how much cash are you putting up? You're putting up zero cash, just legwork.
Oh, sorry. This wasn't even an iPhone. It was an iPod. That's my fault. So it was freeipods.com. So it was at the top of the pyramid. It wasn't even a phone. It was an iPod. And you would, is it an iPod mini, an iPod nano, is an iPod 120 gigs, right? So I went through this thing and of course I got one for myself. Dope. And then I was like, and then what people would do is they would be in these forums, they'd do these things. And it was a big scam basically, but they would actually send you an iPhone. And I got probably like an iPod, like 10 iPods sent to me, and I would resell them on eBay, and it's how I would pay my rent in college. That's
This
how I did it.
sounds like cryptocurrency. So it's just all the old iPod hustlers are now just doing the cryptocurrency
Yeah. So
game.
I got out of that game a long time ago. But Frank, after
Okay.
I got my iPod, I was working at GameStop throughout the entirety of my high school career and my college career. And what year did I graduate high school? 2005. What years where I was in college? Definitely in 2006. And what came out in 2006? The Zune. And what store, for some reason, decided to sell the Zune? GameStop, because it's a video game store. And there was like a game on it, the Hex game by
Do you remember
the
when like
yeah.
the video game stores, like maybe it was late 90s or very early 2000s, but they were just crowded with games. Like they were just games and games and games and games. And then at some point, all the game stores became somewhat media stores and they
Yeah.
became like 50% games and things like that. So I think that's like, I think the Zune must have been catching that little bit of a wave there where they were trying to diversify a little bit. What a gorgeous brown device it was.
I owned the brown one. It was so good. So during my college years, where I had Zunes, I had this stuff, and on this wave, and I loved my Zune. And actually, that was my definitive device. I had a
I
Zune, and I
used it.
loved it. Use it all the time. Do you know why I use it over the iPod?
So you had an oh, so you're oh, I'm sorry. I lost that tangent. I just got lost in the iPod story. So you're an iPod hustler. So why
Mm-hmm.
did the iPod hustler get a Zune? Is it because it reminded you of your hustle days? Was it because you wouldn't be culpable between? Is it a life split in half? The complexities that are James. Is it something like that?
It was the software, Frank. It was the software, and
Oh
the
yeah,
Zune
it was good
software.
software. It was
The
good, man.
Zune software, definitively some of the best software ever created in the entire world. It's so good. It's beautiful, has beautiful animations, the graphics, not only the software on the device, but I'm talking about the Windows desktop software. Now that,
Yeah, forget about the device. I mean,
no,
the device was nice. That was early Metro design.
yeah,
We'll get into it because if we're just talking Zune UI today, I can do this forever because I deep dove into it too. It was striking for me also. Um, Windows apps at the time, you had your standard Win32 app with
hmm,
buttons. You had your VB apps with colorful buttons because they could let you set the color property. You had your Delphi apps and you had some kind of video gaming apps, and then none of the Unix apps worked on Windows back then, so it's fine. You can ignore all of those. And you could always feel that. So those were the kinds of apps. And then the Zune software comes out, and you're like, it feels like a game because it has smooth animation and is colorful and is actually responding to my interactions. And yet, it's a Windows app because here it is in a window and it's not even acting that weird. I mean, it was a radically different UI than a standard app, that's for sure. But you're like, well, maybe this is how UIs should be, and that began. That was my first impression of it. I vaguely listened to some music using it. The progress bars were a little weird. They hid something. Some fonts were too small, but we can critique it. But then I deep dove into the technology of it too. Anyway, I'll stop there and let you go on.
yeah. The Zune software itself, I think there's two pieces of software that really are precursors for movements in software. I think the Zune software is one, and additionally, I think Windows Media Center is another one. And in both of these instances, they did not use standard toolkits out of the box. Now, Windows Media Center, which, I went through this journey of Windows Media Center, which is how I got my job and how I ended up being here and making mobile apps and blah, 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 blah. It actually used a XAML XML type markup, but it had its own, stack basically. It was like the OG XAML stack, pretty much, where you could make these add-ins. I mean, when I look at the Zune software, it really reminds me of early, like you said, Metro and Windows Phone type environments that were out there. It was just so dramatically different that it felt so fresh to me in these days. And at that time, I think
Yeah.
we were still rocking Windows 7, right? Yeah,
Oh, 2005, 6. I think it's even earlier than that because Vista came out in 2005 ish.
yeah,
So I
Vista,
think it was
rocking
more
Vista.
Vista timeline.
Hmm.
Um, it was remarkable. Well, you know what it is? When I was actually thinking is we have versions of it now because it was, whether was it just a reflection of the times or was it a trendsetter? That's for art people to decide. I'm not an art historian. I'm going to say, though, it was my first view into that UI and what it could be. So for me, it's like the Latin of the languages of the UIs that we see now. It turned into Metro on the Windows Phone. Metro was a bit of a blend between the actual Zune UI and then the software. The software was like a gorgeous version of the tiny software running on the actual hardware device. And then it became like, got watered down a bit into Metro. Metro got watered down a bit into, whatever, WPF, and then UWP eventually. And then even Apple adopted the design. So around, it took them a bit longer, but iOS 7 was when we dropped skeuomorphism and put big, bold typography and boring solid colored apps everywhere. They are just the worst. And what I see it as, these people are, it's like a game of telephone. They lost what the beautiful version of it was, which was the Zune UI. You should go back to the Zune UI and see how they were doing things. Like if the iPhone actually adopted the flat aesthetic properly, they would have copied that UI a bit better. I don't know. It's the Latin. That's what I'm going to call it, the Latin of media-based UIs.
Yeah, there's a lot of good that went into it. And the reason this is all really coming to focus is because Zune.net is alive. And you're right. Scott Hanselman has been tweeting all day and all night. I actually had a call with him. He was telling me about what was up. He really hit it well because the Zune is featured in the brand new Guardians of the Galaxy movie, which just came out. Not a sponsor of this podcast. Oh, that would be cool if they were.
He's savvy, that man.
Yeah. And the Zune.net website, it's not like a new version of the Zune or the Zune software or anything like that. But what's fun about it is that it's like STEM type of stuff. So learning how to code, creating a music player and all this stuff. And sort of that has evolved through the process. But Scott Hanselman did in fact get the Zune up and running and working in 2023 through different pieces of software and different things like that. So kind of cool in general. There's a place called zuneupdate.com. Like there's a Zune Reddit. I didn't realize that the Zune was so alive. And I know there's been articles that have come out about it, but I think for good reason. Just like I actually think that the iPod should be alive and well and running because I think so,
nope.
Frank. I think we need
to. Steve Jobs says you don't need a device for music, a device for this, a device for that, a device for cameras. No, you can just build the camera into the other devices. You don't need separate devices for all these things. Hi, I'm Steve Jobs, and I'm going to introduce you to this thing called the iPhone. And it's cool because it puts all these things together into one device. It's not to say that the specific use case devices aren't cool and don't have cachet and aren't cute, but they're never going to come back. They're never going to be as useful as a multi-purpose device. So yes, it could come back. Microsoft's not going to make any money on it, though, so they'll probably never do it. It would have to come back in a really funny form if someone actually wanted to make a piece of hardware for it. Plus, it's bigger than I remember. I used to have one because I used it, but I don't remember it ever showing up in my move. And I think eventually the battery just kind of gave out and it was too big and I stopped keeping it.
The definitive to me, and people can debate this, the definitive Zune and iPod was the iPod Touch and the Zune HD because they were thin, they had nice corners, had touch screens, all this stuff. It was really nice. They're the perfect device, and which is a precursor to modern cell phones. I get it, Frank, but I actually just donated an MP3 player. It's actually really hard to find a good, decent MP3 player for cheap in 2023 because, hold on, Frank, we wanted to get some podcasts that Heather had recorded and give it to her grandma. Her grandma doesn't have a smartphone. How's she going to listen to stuff? We're going to put it on. I don't have a CD drive. I don't have a CD-ROM drive. I can't even put it on a CD. I can't put it on a DVD. How am I going to do that? She didn't have a computer.
Don't you have a record press in Oregon? Isn't there someone out back and you just pour some plastic into a bowl and someone makes you a vinyl record out of it? I thought that's how Oregon rolled.
I believe so. Although Yeah, I guess you maybe could you fit a you'd have to put the one half of the podcast on each side of the vinyl.
Someone did this. One of the podcasts I listened to, Hello Internet, they actually pressed. I think they had actually had to split it in half. I think it was like 30 or 45. I forget how long a
Wow.
record is. 30 or 45 on one side. 30, 45.
That's
Yep,
wild.
fun. It was very expensive and difficult, but they got it done.
That is
Could you
great.
imagine just the amount of energy and effort that would go into making that? Anyway, side rail, derailed. Can we talk about the Windows app some more?
Yes. Well, you, Frank Kruger, tweeted 10 hours ago. I was so impressed by the Zune UI framework that I rigorously reverse engineered the PC app. Turns out the team wrote their own UI controls, renderer, markup language for it. Not XAML, but better. What XAML should have been. Ooh, that's
Mm.
a intense tweet.
It's
All
supposed to be
XAML. I was putting one.
lighthearted, but yeah, I mean,
Frank, you don't
it
write your
is.
tweets lighthearted at all. You're just like, here it is. Blunt. Midwestern blunt.
Blunt, blunt. Okay, yeah, let's talk about it. So they wrote to make the app as awesome as the app is. They designed a rendering engine. They designed a way to create composite controls with XML, and they would composite all those controls into pages with XML, and they hooked up all the interaction events so that like the text input box works, so that the button works. I was a really good Windows hacker back then, and so I just kind of dove in with every every inspection tool you can find to see like exactly how is this window working. And this window, in the Zune case, was a DirectX window with absolutely nothing else in it. Normally in a Windows app, you have sub windows like buttons and text boxes and things like that. Nope, this is a renderer. And so that's how it worked. That is an elegant, if not incredibly time consuming way to build a UI, to build your own UI framework. I love writing little UI frameworks, but James, yours and I, it didn't get anywhere beyond button or something like that. You know, it's fun to rough out a new UI framework, be like, yeah, mine's gonna be DirectX based and have animations baked in, and it's gonna be XML based with live reload and all that cool stuff. And then you finish button and you're like, I'm done. This is too much work. So I want to say it's impressive technologically what they built there. But the thing that blew my mind as a developer, as an engineer at that point in my life, was they actually finished it. Like, they actually built an entire UI framework for this stupid thing. And yes, they did.
And apparently it was called Microsoft Iris. Is that correct? Because I'm seeing that not
Yeah.
only did you tweet about it, but then there's an entire GitHub organization dedicated to bringing back the Zune/Zune dev.
Yeah, I'm a little bit sad. I think must have been easier to reverse engineer years ago because I remember when I was studying it, I was able to get to the actual XML and the whole UI was revealed to you, so you could see their language for declaring things. So you can almost think of it as a precursor to XAML, but the two were developed concurrently. So it's not like one influenced the other or the other way around. That's why I say it was almost a sign of the times. People were thinking maybe XML, probably off the high heels of HTML being a pretty good way to build apps. They're like, well, what if we just had HTML but better? What if we just did a better version of HTML and we'll call that Iris, Iris XML or UI XML, I believe is what they called it. And I believe that the Windows team with WPF had the same idea. They're like, yeah, HTML is pretty cool. That seems like a nice way to write apps. Let's write apps that way. But we're going to do better than HTML, and we'll develop our own set of controls. It took the Windows team 8 billion people and 4 years to build WPF, and some psychopath on the Zune team built Iris and all the controls to make a full UI framework. It just blows the order of magnitude is what blows my mind. It's so much work.
It's true. And like on this Microsoft Iris GitHub, some called UIX, it says it also like a lot of these files were nearly identical in structure to the the Media Center Markup Language, MCML, which is also a precursor to XAML. It's really funny how all these things kind of go back into this XML-esque HTML style thing. I was talking to someone today and they're like, well, what if I'm a web developer, right? And I want to go learn XAML, like how different? I was like, yeah, not that different. Like there's some differences
Mm-hmm.
and some syntax and some properties and blah, blah, blah. It's actually the architecture, which I think is the more challenging part. The XAML
Mm-hmm.
part is not hard. It's the MVVM architecture
Yeah.
stuff, because architecture is not fun, right? So
Yeah. So I just want to go back to reiterate on the interesting architecture of it. Um, that Iris source code that you can go check out on GitHub, and I recommend everyone go take a look at it. But you're going to look at it and be like, yeah, there's button and kind of the normal things here. And there's the rendering engine. That's what's important too. But then, and just to reiterate, the bulk of it was done in XML. There's just so much XML defining the UI. And I remember in the early days of WPF, when you would do file new project, they assumed like a zero blank state of XAML and everything. So it would copy in like a million files with a million style settings and things like that, because there just weren't any sane defaults. And so nothing really worked without throwing in all these files. And I always thought that was crazy because, like, just in style files, it felt like so much code. But then you take a look at something like Zune, where whatever, it's again, the quantity is there. So I hope that in everyone's reverse engineering of it, they have the compiled version of them, just like you could in the old days compile XAML into, what were they, like XBL files, whatever they were. You used to compile XAML into some binary format. All these XML files are compiled into a binary format too, assuming for efficiency.
it's crazy to me just how this thing evolved and how it has this great, comeback story. I think that there's a few pieces of software in my life. Obviously the Zune was not only software, but it was also hardware. But to me, there's a few pieces of software that are so iconic that define a generation. And one of them, I think, is the Zune software. I think the other one, Roller Coaster Tycoon, the original.
Mm,
It's
it's good.
everything about Roller Coaster Tycoon, the story behind it, the development behind it, everything like that. Chris Sawyer, the whole thing, how Roller Coaster Tycoon took off, all this other stuff. Wild, because you can boot up like SimCity 2000 and you boot up Roller Coaster Tycoon. You know exactly what you're going to do, and it's just going to happen, right? But the Zune software combined with the Zune hardware, magic. This is me now. People can judge me, but I think that this is the defining piece. The one that has not, that I know, and I haven't seen it out there, is Space Cadet, which is the
Mm,
original pinball game that was pre-installed on every single Windows
that
machine
one.
back in the day. You would
I
use
like
the
the hover
Z,
game, Hover 3D.
I don't know, it's Space Cadet. That's the only one
Everything's
I could.
definitive. It's funny
Yeah,
because you're listing those games. I would have given you different ones. I would have said Racer 3D, but whatever. We all have our formative ones. But it's fun that we agree on Zune was definitely formative for all that stuff.
yeah,
Uh, can I address my snark clickbait a little bit
sure.
in the end of my tweet there?
Mm-hmm.
I said this is what XAML should have been. What's neat is because it is older, and the Latin of all these languages, they were experimenting, figuring out what should be in these declarative markup things. And this is very different from how React works these days too, but React could take a few lessons from all this. The snark was, these files were meant to be edited by a human, just the way you would write HTML back in the day. You would write it by hand and you would write these XML files. And that's the original way XAML was developed. So there was a bad day in XAML where it was decided that XAML won't be written by humans. XAML will be written by tools, namely a tool called Blend. It was when
Mm,
Blend people became very popular and powerful at Microsoft. And Blend was having a hard time generating good quality code for XAML because XAML was complicated and designed for humans, and it was very powerful, but it was very complicated. And it was hard to build a UI for it because it was powerful.
yeah.
And so one day it was decided, and there must have been a company wide meeting or something, but I just remember the words. They're like, we're now designing XAML to be output by programs and not written by humans. And therefore, we are removing a lot of the fancy, nice features from XAML that just make writing it, you could say, just shorter, but just nicer. The way you set properties now, it's like an extra level of indentation than it used to be. And so they remove certain things like that. And it's sad, because when you look at something like the Zune XML, you see what, in my mind, I was lucky I was there, what the original version of XAML looked like. And you're like, oh gosh darn it. It was better back then. It was harder for tools to output, but it was better for developers. And so that's what my snarkiness in my tweet was all about.
The difference is, as a user of Blend that used Blend to make beautiful animations and styles and all the things in my beautiful WinPhone and all these other Windows applications I've had, I loved it. Once you learned how to use it, it was just like, and here's all this stuff and all the states and all the things, like, this is beautiful. Anyway, I remember the Blend. As people are asked to this day. Well, the funny part now is that I kind of go back to all the XAML I write is by hand, to be honest with you.
That's it.
Wow.
By hand, one out, sadly. Like, I like their idea, but their idea had the flaw that it required that this tool always be updated. And the thing that they weren't anticipating back then was a split in XAML. Even though they kind of did it to themselves with Silverlight coming out, they're the ones that did the initial XAML split. But the tool then became hard because now you have to have the tool for both environments. And then when a third environment came out, like UWP, now you got to port the tool to that. When a fourth environment, Xamarin Forms, comes out, another XAML environment, now you got to port the tool to that, which they never bothered to get around to. So it's just using Blend as this is the way you do XAML design was just a flaw, because you don't design a format where you require one tool. In the end, human XAML won out.
XAML. Yeah. That's interesting. I don't know what the original XAMLs looked like, so I don't know. So you only know. Well, people don't know.
A lot of people know.
Frank worked on the WPF team, so
back in the day, after it was designed. So I don't want to take any credit for the design. So I just got plopped there, and they're like, "Here's XAML." I'm like, "Oh, interesting. New way to build UIs." Fascinating.
There is a episode of Merge Conflict about. So if people are newer to the podcast too, I don't want to rob them of this. Which is there was a podcast. I wish we had video of that back in the day. If you go to search,
I probably looked younger.
Frank, I'm gonna do. I think it was called The Life and Life.
It was pompous. Yeah. Try Life. Am I alive? Hi.
Episode 132, The Life and Times of Frank Krueger. I'll put that into the show notes. Let's just mergeconflict.fm/132.
132.
Yeah, 132. You didn't get 123. We got 132. And we still have never recorded mine, nor will we ever. I'm a mystery. Actually, we kind of did a mini one that one time. But...
Well, we get little drips and drabs. I learned some things about you today. I didn't know about the iPod lifestyle that you lived.
Yeah. Free iPod websites. I wish that there was like
don't go there. We need to finish the recording and not have all of our computers crash before.
I know. It's all whatever bad news, everything now. Anyways, I think this is really cool. I think that there's nostalgia in bringing back some of this classic software. I honestly would be down for some classic hardware. I'm just saying, I would buy a new Zune today. I'd buy that.
But you would want it to be $100. Who knows? Someone could copy the design. I mean, it was just a rounded rectangle.
Yeah, limited edition. You know what I mean? Like, I think that would be cool. Like, give me a limited edition Zune, limited edition iPod Touch, iPod Nano. Right. Well, the thing is, I don't have. What am I supposed to put on it? That's the only problem.
That is the issue. So I'm almost thinking you could fit like a Raspberry Pi inside of its case, because it was pretty big and the screen was pretty small. So you could almost make like a Raspberry Pi one. Not saying anyone should. Don't devote your summer to building a Raspberry Pi Zune unless there already is one on Thingiverse.
I like that. In fact, if you go to Zune.net, I believe there is a whole thing about 3D printing a Zune.
Oh boy. It's
in space.
In space.
In space. I'm pretty sure. It says Red Wire Field Trip 3D printing a Zune. So I don't know if if they have, I'll put this link for you. It's on the Zune.net website, but I think
I'm a
I
little
don't
bit worried, everyone.
I don't know.
Is he trying to sell me an iPod right now? I can't tell anymore. I don't know if I really trust you.
Yeah, what am I even talking about anymore? Um, anyways, this has been a fun journey down this, and I'm gonna put some show notes to the Zune Dev, GitHub, things like that. I think it's cool that there's communities around all types of software, right? And I think about the Internet Archive, right? Just archiving stuff and bringing stuff around. They're in a big battle right now over
Oh,
books of all
really?
things. Um, just all, yeah. But
That-
you know,
That's
these things
sad.
are important.
They are, and I want to. I just like to make fun of Scott Hansen, but I love him, and I love that he's bringing this back, and I love that he got it all into our consciousness and gave us an excuse to talk about one of the great frameworks out there and an okay device. The device was okay. The music library was awesome. The device was okay in brown. I like the brown, and the software architecture was amazing.
Yeah,
Good things from
that,
Zune.
I like it. All right, well, go check out Zune.net. It's alive. It's a website. I love it. There's a cool Guardian of the Galaxies trailer. I'll probably go see the third one. I think I saw the second one. I like the first one a lot. Second one's pretty good. I'll go see the third one. Why not? But I don't know. Chris Pratt. Now he's just Mario in my mind the entire time. So,
But that was just a voice. As long as it doesn't have daddy issues, I'm in. It's gonna
no,
have daddy
it's
issues.
oh, and Guardians.
Yeah.
Yeah, you know, we'll leave it at that. I think that's going to
Mm.
do it. This. I think that Oh, you know what I did see? Let's close this out here. There's what is with DC movies? How
Well, they try
come?
to make something that's not Batman, but only Batman does well. That's the problem.
Yeah, there's a trailer for Blue Beetle that I saw at the Super Mario Brothers movie,
Blue
and I don't know
Beetle's
anything.
kind of an interesting character. We'll see if they do him any justice. That's the problem. Blue Beetle
At
can
the
be. The joke with Blue Beetle is that he is a joke. Blue Beetle is fantastic for that, but he's actually a really neat character.
well, at the end of the trailer, some people in the theater did laugh at the trailer. Now, I don't think because the trailer was funny, but maybe you're right. Maybe there's satire in Blue Beetle itself, but
It's
I
gonna
don't know.
take a kind of genius to do Blue Beetle, so we'll see if they found a genius to do Blue Beetle.
I would like DC, like all this. I would like DC movies to be successful beyond Batman. That's all I'm saying.
Hey, they're successful, James, if you enjoyed your time at the movie theater. So what you're really saying is you're definitely going to see it and you're just apprehensive. That's what I'm hearing over here.
I should probably go see it because I do have a Regal Unlimited pass, and so far I've seen one movie, which is the new Super Mario Brothers movie, and it's fantastic. I am going to see the Barbie movie though. That looks spectacular. We talked about it before, but I'm a big Barbie fan. I'm even wearing my
Since this
pink
is
shirt
movie
today.
hour, I'm looking forward to it too, but I'm not sure I'll last more than 15 minutes. The trick with that one is like, I'll make it to the end. That's the only
Yeah, there you go. All right. Thanks everyone for
movie review
listening.
over.
Yeah, and/or watching this week's podcast. You can follow us everywhere on the internet, mergeconflict.fm. That's where you can go. There's all the links to our socials, to our podcasts. If you're on YouTube, you can subscribe in the YouTube Music app or any podcast application. Additionally, we have a Patreon. We get bonus episodes. You can see Frank and me and/or listen to us every single week. We'll put both of them now, audio and video, special edition, on the Patreon. We do a bonus podcast. This week we talked about something. I believe you can see like a little 30-second snippet on the patreon.com/mergeconflict.fm. It's on mergeconflict.fm. That's where you can find everything. Additionally, beyond that, you can find Frank and I on the internet, on our YouTubes, all the things. Anyways, there's links in the show notes below. Thanks for listening. Until next time, I'm Jason Montemagno.
And I'm Frank Kruger. Thanks for listening and watching.
Peace.